YouTube. Today we're going to take a look and start playing around in Visual Studio. So today is one of those days where you're going to follow along. If it's not working for you, you can lean over to your neighbor and say, what am I missing here? Where's the button he keeps talking about? I can't see it. Or raise your hand and I'll come help you. But don't get 10 minutes behind, because then it takes a long time to get you caught up. So I want you to stay with me today. Last time we talked about how to start Visual Studio, so let's do that again just as a refresher. Excuse me. Because you started Visual Studio last time, it might be here right on your Start menu. If it's not, go back to All Programs. And here's a power tip, if I can get that to come up. Here's Visual Studio 2013. Make sure you're using Visual Studio, not Visio. Somebody made that mistake. And you can right-click on this and pin it to your Start menu or the taskbar down here at the bottom. I don't know why Start menu isn't here, or you can drag it from there. There's all kinds of things you can do to make it convenient, but don't. Because very rarely will you start Visual Studio from scratch. We're going to do it today, but most of the time you're going to start it from an existing project, and you'll learn how to do that today as well. Now when yours starts up, it's probably still starting with the start screen, right? Here's the start page. And my toolbox is in the way because I was practicing before class. This ought to look pretty close to yours. That's where we left off last time. That's one way to start Visual Studio. I normally only use it to start a new project. And most of the time, I don't even use that. I like that start page to go away. So let's get rid of it. To get rid of the start page, click on the X. And today I'm going to show you how to get rid of it permanently, so the next time you start Visual Studio, it doesn't come back to haunt you again. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. What I want to do today is start our very first Visual Studio project. I mentioned it briefly last time that in Visual Studio, when you create a program, you're really writing a solution to a problem. In Visual Studio, solutions to a problem can be comprised of many projects, and many projects can have many forms. In our case, our solution, we can't remove that, is only going to have one project, and the project may have one or two forms. So our solutions are going to be fairly simple, but Visual Studio is this big project. So here's where we want to pay close attention, please. To start a new project, we close the start screen. So I'm going to go to, this button could do it, but I'm going to go to File just in case, New Project. Click on that. And you're going to do this 15 times this semester at least, assuming you don't lose anything. When you lose them, then you do a few more. There are all kinds of projects that we can create using Visual Studio. Yours right now probably says Visual Basic selected, right? It looks something like this. Somebody nod so I can hear you. Thank you. All right, looks like that. But we're not doing Visual Basic in this class. A very common mistake. I still make it occasionally. When you start a new project, make sure that Visual Basic is not selected. You should see, if you collapse this by clicking on the triangle, C#. If not, click Other Languages first and then C#. And we want to create a Windows form application. Those are the only thing we're ever going to create in this class. So whenever you create a new project, make sure it says Visual C#. Make sure it's Windows form application. And then there's a couple more steps. The first thing I recommend you do is designate where this is going. Where does yours go? It's someplace really deep in your file system, right? Visual Studio project. You'll never find it. So let's change that. Click the Browse button. So it's easy to find. On the left-hand side, click the desktop. Then say select the folder. This is where your project's going. All right? I see Rachel getting out her external hard drive. You can put it there. Right? And because you're using your virtual machines, your external hard drive will probably be drive E. And you can say, by default, I want it always to go to E. The downside to the external hard drives, particularly if it's a USB 2 drive, is the processing speed while you're writing programs can be a little slow off those external drives. So what I like to do is put them on my desktop, work. Then when I'm done, you have to remember to take it off your desktop and put it on your external drive, or in the cloud, or wherever you want to put it. That's the way I like to do it. If you forget, it's no big deal. It'll be on your virtual machine when you come back, but if you wanted to work on it at home tonight, there's no way to get to your virtual machine and pull that project off of there. So you have to remember to put it in that USB drive or put it on in your cloud someplace. But for right now, I'm going to put mine on the desktop. So now this says C user student desktop. Yours probably does too, because all our virtual machines, our usernames are student right now. Finally, and this is the part some people forget to do, that's the name of our project. That's pretty lame. Let's give it one that's just a little less lame. Let's call it sample. When you do, it also changes your solution name, which makes sense. So one more time, we click C#, Windows Form Application. In the future, you should only have to check this to make sure it's still good. One of the advantages of being in this lab and your virtual machine is it'll remember that. When you're at home, if Rachel sets it to E, to her external drive, it'll remember that, and the next time you create a new project, it'll offer to put it on that drive. Same thing here with your virtual machine. Be careful if you decide to use Visual Studio in one of the Windows labs. The other ones around here with the deep freeze stuff in it, every time you set these settings up, they go away the next day. Boy, was that a pain last year. Now, everything's remembered. It's great, much better. So this user student desktop should be there from now on whenever you create a new project on your Mac virtual machine. Change the name of the project, then click on OK. Ta-da! Now you have a project. Not only that, but you have a Form 1 as part of that project. You've written code. Well, I hate to say written, but let's rephrase. You've created code. Probably thousands, maybe tens of thousands of lines of code. What? All I did is create a new project. Yes, but there's no such thing as a project without a form. Form is just another name for a window. Let's start this program. What happens when we start it? It runs it. Okay, but what happens behind the scenes? What do computers understand? Binary, ones and zeros. Machine language is another term for it. Ones and zeros. Have you typed any ones and zeros in? No. But we need to convert this form into its ones and zeros equivalent. Compile it. Talked about that last time. We have to compile it. When you click this go button, the start button, the green arrow, that does multiple things. It first compiles your program. If there's any errors, it will display them. We haven't done anything wrong yet, so it's hard to create errors at this point. But if there's anything wrong, it will display it. It'll turn it into ones and zeros, and then it actually executes it. So go ahead and click start. And look, you have a window. Ta-da, and you move it around like that, it makes the other one shrink and get the heck out of the way. But look at what this window can do. What? Wait. No way. You guys are so lucky. You can maximize it, you can restore it, you can minimize it, bring it back again. I wish you could rotate it. That doesn't happen. This button does things. You didn't write one line of code, and you already have a very complex box that resizes. It's got color, it's got a title, it's got all the buttons, and the buttons light up when you just hover on them. That's magic. My junior year in school, I don't think I could have written the code to draw a box where all things light up and it resizes and moves around on the screen. I don't think I could have done that. Of course, my junior year in school, we didn't have Windows yet. But I don't think I could have done it. I'm not sure I could do it today, maybe given enough time. But we don't have to. It's done for us. You click the X, it closes. Go ahead and close your running program. And Visual Studio comes back. Why is this one blue, the other one's yellow? Because of your color scheme. It'll change. Congratulations, you wrote your first program, it works. You can take that home and show your friends how you can generate a window that moves around and resizes, and they'll go, wow. Let's close Visual Studio. On your desktop, you should see a folder labeled Sample. That's your solution folder. That's what you just created by saying, make me a new project, put it on the desktop, call it Sample. Get all of this. Let's dig inside of there. Double click it. When you double click it, you get the Windows Explorer thing, and you may see large icons. If you see large icons, maybe change the view to list is my favorite. All right, but I'm going to go to large icons just so mine looks a little more like yours. Notice the icon. There's another folder. There's a folder inside the folder. Right now, you're looking at the solution folder. Inside the solution folder, there's a project folder, and there's also a solution SLN file. Do you see the extension, SLN? Do you know how to turn on the extensions at home? If you're using Windows 8, it's hiding, oh, I can never remember where it is. Is it View, Navig? No, that's not right. Options, got to look around. Folder and search options is what you're looking for. It's already done for you here in your virtual machines, but you want these, this is my favorite bumper sticker. I wish I had one. Real programmers and networkers show their extensions. It's only a good bumper sticker, huh? Show your extensions. Always have those on so you know what type of file you're looking at. Windows by default assumes you can barely find your way around Windows, so it hides those so they don't confuse you. You should not be confused by extensions. You will want to see them. Go to folder options, however you do that, and then view. And then down here's a checkbox that says hide extensions. It's normally on, you turn it off. So go home and figure out how to do that. If I turn it on, here's what you normally see. Notice just sample. Where's the extension? It's there. It's just hidden for non-IT Windows users. I don't know. So one more time, I'm going to turn those on, change, view, go away. I also like to show the hidden files, although that's optional. You can see this sample V12 is kind of grayed out. It's hidden. That one's not quite as important as the extensions. Let's go into the project folder. Double click the project folder. Holy cow. Inside there I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 files and 3 more folders. What's all that stuff for? It's what Visual Studio uses to manage your solution and your projects. Got to be very careful with these. Let's go in the bin folder. Bin is for binary. Binary is another word for ones and zeros. There's a debug folder, go in there. In there you will find an exe file. Notice the extension, again you wouldn't see it. That extension is the executable version of your program, the ones and zeros version of your program. Double click it. Ta-da! There's your fancy form. When you write programs in this class that you really do want to share, some of your second programs or 5th unit, 6th unit programs will be fairly complex. You might want to share them with little kids, math programs we're going to write. If you want to share them, this is what you give them, the exe file. That's all. The rest of that stuff they don't need. That's the good news. When you write these programs, you grab the exe and give it to whoever you want on a flash drive. You can't email it because of the exe extension. All email programs block it. Though you could zip it and send the zip file, or what I like to do is add an X to the end. Just one extra character over here really freaks out Windows. Sure, you know what you're doing. Danger with Will Robinson. Yes, I know what I'm doing. Right. And now you can email it because the email program goes, that's not an exe. Well, didn't I just mess up my phone? No, I just changed the name. And then when the person on the other end gets it, maybe you can train them to click on it, rename it, take the X back off again, and now it's still executable. No damage done to that program whatsoever. Or you can just hand it to them. Chris?
Would you not be able to open it then if it's EX? Yeah.
Well, if it's exe, they won't be able to open it by double clicking until they take that X back off. Correct. Now you've seen that. Sit back for a second. What you saw on the outside, your sample folder, it's called the solution folder. It's got everything in it for this solution. Inside there was an SLN file. We turned on its extension. All the SLN file is really a catalog of projects. You can have a solution with lots of projects. The SLN file just keeps track of here's my projects and here's where they're stored. Inside the project, we didn't see this, but we can. If we go back out of the debug folder into the project folder, here's a CS project folder. That project folder, or that project file, excuse me, it's not a folder. That project file is also a catalog of all the forms that are in the project. And right now, our project only has one form, that magical one that we created with all that typing we just did. But you can create 3, 4, 5, 10. I've got projects with 15, 30, 35 forms in them. And there's ways to link them together, and you'll learn a little bit about that this semester. But what these two, the SLN file and the project file, are simply catalogs. This solution has one project, and here it is. That's what's in there. It's a very, very small file. This project has 1, 2, 3, 4 files, and here's where they are, and here's their names. It's just a catalog. As we saw, there's a bin folder and a debug folder, and inside there is your executable. And you can change the icon. I will show you how, and I'll shout, because the icon that was on sample.exe was really lame. So I'll show you how to change it. So that's the structure. This is on my website if you want to see this picture. I didn't put it in my notes, but this structure is on your website. And you shouldn't mess with this structure much. If we wish, there could be a second project folder, but that's, for us, that's never going to happen. Couple of rules. Do not rename these files. Do not delete them. Okay, you can delete these too. It won't hurt you. Because the next time you run your program and make a new set of ones and zeros, it recreates those folders. So those you can delete, but they're the only ones. Do not rename them, because if you rename it here in the catalog, it still has the old name in the catalog, and now it goes, I can't find my form file. It's a very common mistake. Do not rename your project folder, this one. Because this catalog, which we can't get inside of, says project folder is called sample. So if you rename that, you just busted up the catalog, and it's if you ask the pig real nice, maybe he'll take some time to try to put it back together for you. It's not an easy process. So you can save yourself some pig money by not messing with these files. One more level back, there's that's not where I want to be, up. Here's my sample folder. It's on my desktop. It's right there. That you may rename. As a matter of fact, let's do it. So find that folder. To rename it, you right-click it, or my favorite shortcut key for that is F2. Go to the beginning of it, put your last name in there. If you're Schneider, add your first initial to it. If you're Yang, add your first initial to it, because there's a couple of you in here. But this is what I would like you to do to all your projects. Create them and put your name at the beginning when you submit them to me. That has no effect on the inside. This is just like, it's like picking up a file folder out of a filing cabinet, ripping off the label, putting a new one on. What do we do to the insides? Nothing. Same thing here. But that's the only thing that you should be renaming. The outside most folder is the only thing you should be renaming using Windows. That'll have no effect whatsoever. Except I'll know whose project it is when you send it to me. Let's open that folder one more time, because I want to get back into Visual Studio and I want to use this project. What I normally do is find my solution folder and double-click the solution file, the one with the SLN, the one with the Visual Studio. This says 12. I thought we were using 2013. The 12 is the numeric version of this. It's the 12th edition of Visual Studio 2. That's just confusing us. So just ignore those. Here we go. If you've created projects in the past using Visual Studio 10 or 12, as in 2010, 2012, they will import, no problem. And they'll run and everything will be fine. What you can't do is take a 13 project that we're creating now, Visual Studio 2013, and open it in Visual Studio 10, 2010, or 2012 even, which is annoying. You can't take a project backwards, but you can bring in older ones, and it doesn't even convert them. It makes them accessible to both, which is kind of nice. But none of you have, if you do still have 12 from a previous version of my class, uninstall it, install 13. All right, so we started a new project. Well, we didn't save it. Yes, we did. There are 4 ways to save a project, and by the way, it's back again because you can see here's form 1, and here it says solution sample. I know it's back in here again. Where's the form? Did yours pop up? If it doesn't pop up, don't freak out, think it's gone. It's right here. Double click it, and there it is again. And we'll learn what to do that. So over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I found the Form 1 CS. It's got this little form icon, and after another 2 hours, you'll be so used to that, you just go over there and double click it, and it'll open it up. How do we save it? Well, the easiest way to save your program is to run it. What I mean by run is start it, but really it's running the program. If you do that, Visual Studio automatically takes everything you've done. If you haven't saved it, saves it because it assumes you want to run the most recent version of your program. The only time that will fail and not save is if there are errors in your program. Most of the time you'll have those cleaned out because Visual Studio is like Microsoft Word, puts little red squiggles under your errors. Don't try to run a program that's got red squiggles under it because it won't do it. But otherwise, running the program saves it. That's really convenient. If you want to save before then, you can click on the Save All button up here with the 2 little discs. The Save button only saves the open object. We can have lots of forms. We can have all kinds of stuff. And this Save only saves the current one. So I prefer this one. You can go to File, Save As. If you can remember the shortcut, I don't even remember those. I just run. That's my favorite way of saving stuff. So if we were to make changes, as soon as you run, they're saved. You don't have to worry about it. That's why I didn't talk about it. We closed Visual Studio. You can close a project and open another one while you're inside. I don't normally do that. Notice there's X's all over the place. Here's one. Visual Studio, my solution is still running. If I want to close the project, I rarely do that. This one closes all of Visual Studio. We talked about solutions, projects, and source files. This is your source file. It doesn't look like it. It looks like a picture of a form, right? This little button here allows you to see the code that's behind it to some extent. So let's click on that. Click. And notice you get 2 tabs up here. Look, you did write code. Let me rephrase that again. You generated code simply by starting. I clicked on this little guy right here. What's all that stuff mean? I barely know myself, and I would love to get rid of some of that stuff. I don't think we need link. I'm not sure we need threading. I think some of those things can be removed and have no effect on my program. I'm going to experiment because this list is getting longer and longer. Every edition of Visual Studio, they'll add more of those. Which ones can I get rid of? Because if I could get rid of those, it'll probably make my executable smaller and a little faster. What this does is it creates a project, a namespace called sample, and it creates a partial form. Don't worry about partial. Don't worry about any of this. This stuff, my advice to you, don't mess with it. It's all necessary just to create that outside skeleton, but it was generated for us automatically. You guys are so lucky in my day. Nothing was generated automatically. We know about solutions and projects. Over here is your Solution Explorer. The Solution Explorer shows you that you're working on the sample project. Here's its name. If you decide you want to rename some of this stuff, this is where you do it. You could rename that file with the catalog. That doesn't make much sense. Remember the very first step? We created a brand new solution. We gave it a good name. If you miss that step, it is almost impossible to rename that folder right there. It'll say Window Application 1, which is a really lame name, and you can't change it. I haven't found a way to change that folder name without kind of starting over. So step one, when you build your project, give it a good name right away, because fixing it later is much harder. And so there's the solution. Here's my project. Notice how many other projects I have. None. And inside my project are all these support files and my form. My form is my code. That's the one, that's where all the code is. If we expand the form, there's a file in there called Form1 Designer. Every now and then we got to mess around in there, but that's another dangerous place to go messing around in. Double click it. Here's a plus sign in a gray box. Click that and oh my God, look at all this stuff. What does all that mean? And this is just getting warmed up. This file automatically grows as you start adding things to your form, and we're going to do that after the break. It's going to grow automatically. Whenever you say, I need a text box on my form, you put a text box on there, Visual Studio goes into here and puts in the code necessary to manage that text box automatically. You don't even have to write it. If you mess with it, you're living on the edge. You could mess up your whole program, have to start over by messing around in this file. There's a few circumstances where we need to, and I will show you how, and that should be the only time you ever mess around in there. I don't do it very often. I'm going to close that so I don't accidentally trash it. X just closes it, doesn't delete it, closes it. So there's all kinds of stuff in there that gets generated automatically. We just opened an existing project. The way I do it, find a solution folder, find the solution file. Remember I dug into here. And double click that. I couldn't tell you on my office computer home, I'm not sure where the Visual Studio 2013 icon is. I never use it. I just go into an existing project and launch. And if I want to make a new one, then I go File, New, and poof, it creates a new one for me. So I rarely use the Visual Studio icon. I launch projects from here. Your screen looks a little different than mine already because I was practicing. Actually, let me see. Sit tight for a second. Oh, don't take too long, please. I can't even move this now, but notice how mine's a little different across top. I got different buttons here, and I managed to hide one of these things up here, and mine's different. And it shouldn't take this long. I'm going to share with you what's nice is I can not only import settings. In my notes, it talks about all these things we got to do. We got to remove the start page. We got to change the default solution folder. We got to change the output window, run on error, line numbers, source code, customizing. Oh my God. It's got to be an easier way. And this has changed, by the way. Got to be an easier way. Yes, we can import the settings. I have saved my favorite settings, which of course will become your favorite settings because you want your window to look like mine. How do you bring my settings in? First thing you need to do is get a copy of them. So minimize Visual Studio. And notice now I'm back. I've got all these ugly boxes here that I don't ever use. And I got this quick launch bar that I don't ever use. And there's a few other things. All my line numbers are gone. Right? How do we get the settings? Minimize Visual Studio, open up Firefox or Chrome or whatever you wish, and go to my webpage. To use Firefox, there should be a link to my webpage there already. Everybody ready? Going to programming? No, we're not going to programming logic. If you're anywhere on my website, we're going to OneDrive. On the first day of class or the second day of class, I forget which one it was, I told you that I have a OneDrive account where I put stuff that you can get to. It's in the cloud. That's where we're going. OneDrive. When that comes in, sign in. Big blue button. Here's the account. MSTC, that's where you go to school, not too hard to remember. V for Volker Gall. One big word, all lowercase, at hotmail.com. This is an account I created on OneDrive just so I can share stuff with you. Password, can't see it, is student, all lowercase. Okay, I forgot to turn on the recording before I signed in. I hit the big sign in button. And you probably see these big icons, and that just kind of gets old real fast. So my advice, if you like them, keep them. My advice is go to this button right next to it, and that makes things a little bit smaller. Where do you think you're going? Logic beginning. And here's a bunch of stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you. In addition, when I create stuff in class, you maybe had a bad day and couldn't keep up with typing, or your finger was broken, or Volker said don't try to follow because I'm going too fast for you anyways. When I'm done, I will put it up here. So you can go home, go to OneDrive, live.onedrive.com, or just go to my site, click on OneDrive. Sign into this MSTC account and download it onto your computer at home. So if you're not keeping up with class, you doze off, that's going to happen to every one of you at least for 30 seconds. All right? Don't worry about it. Everything I do in class that's important, this sample thing, I'm not so sure. We'll get up here. Speaking of important, here's Volker's settings for C# 2014-0801. Let's download that, right-click it. Actually, I think a one-click will do it, but I'm going to right-click it and download it. And it's going to say, what do you want to do, save it or open it? We don't want to open it, save it. You're going to want to do this on your home computer again, because this is just adding the settings to this virtual machine. When you go home, do this one time. It's a one-time bad deal unless I find a new way to improve this. Let's put it in your documents folder. So scroll around or whatever you got to do to find documents. Mine's already there because I was practicing to make sure all this works. And hit save. Once you're done, you can close the browser, minimize the browser, whatever you want to do. Go back to Visual Studio. I had Visual Studio down here. I clicked it to maximize it or bring it back. And now we need to import those settings. This is a one-time bad deal. Unless you go into the other labs, then you'll have to do it again. Do it here, you do it at home, should be done. This is in my notes. Tools, import and export. You want to import. If I'm getting ahead of you, you gotta holler. Say, wait, help, something. Next. It wants to know, do you want to save your current settings? Why? They're stupid. No. Next. Now, where are the settings that you would like to import? Browse. Documents. It's over on the left-hand side of your screen, and you should see Volker's C# settings 2014-0801. Pardon me? Okay. I'll come help you in a second. Almost done. Double click. Next. Finish. Doesn't take long. We're going to end the recording here. How can you tell if it worked? Notice the toolbar up here says collapse and expand on the end. They were not there before. You now have toolbars that look exactly like mine. I now have line numbers. If you're looking at code, you have line numbers. The start screen won't show up anymore. All that stuff that was 3 pages long in my notes is built in here, done. I know some of you need help, but questions? Should never have to do this again. This is a one-time configure Visual Studio. We're not configuring the sample project, we're configuring Visual Studio, and it's all ready for us to go. You can leave that where it is. When we come back from break, we'll pick up where we are.